I'm ready, Richard.
Go.
Good evening. Tonight I'm going to talk about nothing, something and everything. Now, when I was younger, I failed my maths O-level. But since then, what I've got is a few heroes in the numbers game. And I want to talk about some numbers tonight. One of my first heroes is 0. And it's a bit of a conundrum because nobody understands 0. In fact, it was invented some time ago. 0 means nothing. And I say that because I challenge you to think of nothing. If I tell you to think of no oranges, you've thought of an orange. Can you think of no oranges? No. So nothing is a concept that you cannot understand. Now, in the positional number system, Babylonians 3,000 years BC didn't have 0. They just had numbers and they used a space. But there was a young man in India some time ago, Bettakultcha, and he is recognised to have invented 0. Big round of applause for Bettakultcha. Without 0, we'd all be nothing. So we have this problem of he invented it, but in 6 AD it was quite a major concept. It didn't come to Europe until the 12th, 13th century, so we didn't even recognise it in Europe in our numbering system. So it's a fairly recent invention. So, unfortunately, Bettakultcha got paid nothing. And that's a shame, because you think of an inventor and they normally get paid lots and lots, but he didn't. He actually got paid nothing for nothing. Poor chap. But I want to talk about him being my hero. My second hero is something. And something of quite a conundrum that's been a conundrum for years and years and years. And I want to talk about my second hero is pi. That pi, when you immediately think of that, I'm going to talk about the number pi. Pi is an interesting concept because it's an irrational number. And an irrational number is something you can't turn it from a fraction. It can't be expressed as a fraction. But in decimals, it can go on and on and on. And it never repeats. It can go on, and it never repeats. It can go on and on. Sorry, I was being rational there, sorry. So an irrational number. But pi is an interesting concept because for years scholars have expressed pi in actual fact, we're now to trillions of digits of pi. But we usually only use the first 3 or 4, and that's to calculate things like the size of a circle or the size of the pie. Now, that's what probably most of you thought when I started talking about pi. And unfortunately, no presentation of mine ever goes without a mention of food, because I love pie. But you can calculate the angle of the pie, the diameter of the pie, and actually what size slice you want by using pi. But I talk about my favourite pie, and we live in the rhubarb triangle. Again, we're back to angles. We are in the rhubarb triangle, and I love rhubarb pie. But the key thing is, when you get the menu at the local deli, they talk about the bottomless jug of custard, and I think that's a bit of an anomaly for me. Does that mean it's got a hole in it? But no, they mean endless, endless amounts of custard. I've yet to see that happen in my cafe. However, that brings me on to talking about endless jugs of custard. My third hero is infinity. Because I think this is one thing, it's a conceptual thing. Is it a number? We cannot get our heads around infinity. It's such a huge number, you can't imagine what infinity is. And I can ask you, what is infinity? But in fact, infinity is at either end of the number positional scale. So in fact, we could say there are 2 infinities, one at the positive, one at the negative. But no, there are infinite number of positive numbers. There's an infinite number of negative numbers. There's an infinite number of irrational numbers. It's just a pile of infinite numbers. In fact, infinity is important. And I introduce you to Hilbert's Hotel. Hilbert's Hotel is always empty. If you want to stay at Hilbert's Hotel, there is always a space. It's full, but there's a vacancy. And all Hilbert does is move the guest into the next room. There's always a room free. But if you ask a child what's the largest number they can think of, they'll probably say 100, 1,000, 1 billion. But in actual fact, when they get older and smarter, they talk about infinity. And then you say, haha, but what about infinity plus 1? And infinity plus 1 is infinity. And that's my final slide. I want to talk about nothing. That's my whole reason for being here, is just to introduce you to my three heroes tonight, because infinity is the power of nothing divided by zero is infinity.